Hi, my guest today needs almost no introduction in the data world. He created Apache Spark, co-founded Databricks, and is now its CTO. He's also a professor at UC Berkeley and behind massive projects like MLflow, Data Lake, DSPy, Unity Catalog, and more recently, Omnigent. Matei, great to have you here.
Great, thanks for having me.
And of course, my famous co-host, Quentin.
Hey, Matei, thanks for taking the time.
I wanted to start with Omnigent because, we all were in pink, obviously, and that's what everyone is talking about. And can you tell us more? What is it and what the problem does actually solve? And also, I have to ask because I heard the origin story involves Reynolds sending you a wish list before Christmas, and because he was tired of keeping his laptop open while vibe coding, but that's not the only
It wasn't before Christmas. It was like 3 months ago. Then we started building this. Yeah. So Omnigent is what we call a meta harness. It's basically an orchestration and control layer on top of agents. You have many coding agents today that you can use. You build lots of custom agents, but then you want to work with a bunch of them together. And you also want certain features across all your agents, like governance, control, or even just collaboration with people. If every agent and every app builds those in a different way, you just have a big mess, and it's very hard to make things work. So we built this layer that kind of wraps existing agents and lets you easily work with many of them, whether you're composing many agents to solve the same task, or you're trying to control them more centrally, or trying to give them some nice features like real-time collaboration with other humans and stuff like that. The main use case that we started with is for coding, because like all the developers we saw that really got into coding agents ended up building very custom ways to manage lots of agents. So it's an easy way for you to use any of the coding agents out there and create a collaborative workflow with like your team and with multiple people as well, and multiple agents. But we're also using it to build custom agents. It makes it really easy to build an agent and swap out the harness and swap out any subcomponents of it. So we think it's kind of the next layer up for working with AI, basically. It actually kind of started from a few different places. So first of all, there were all the engineers coding at Databricks. And as I said, anyone who really got into coding agents was soon building their own way to manage lots of them. People were building their own desktop apps and stuff because they didn't like using a terminal. Also people were mixing different agents like Codex and Cloud Code and so on. So we saw everyone's kind of solving the same problem. If we build a single way to manage these, then they can share the work and we can build security once and build collaboration once. And that was one angle. And that's where Reynolds said, he was saying, well, I don't think you can do it unless I can also see the terminal version of the agent, because if it's just a chat app, I'm missing too much. Sometimes I want to run stuff in a terminal. But lots of engineers had very different opinions on what they would like. And that's why we came up with the idea of wrapping existing coding agents and building something around them instead of trying to replace them all with one new thing. And then the other angle was building custom agents. So there are all these teams building custom agents like Genie or internal agents, and they all ran into the exact same problems. I built my agent, but now I need an app with sharing and collaboration. Now I need history. Now I want to try a different harness, new GPT model came out, so I want to try that or whatever. So we thought, hey, actually we could also build something there, this idea of a layer above the harnesses where you can change.
So it means, let's say I'm using a Cloud Code or Codex at a daily basis, and then I want to switch. So I'm using Cloud, and I want to switch to Codex. Then I can just stay on Omnigent, and I can just choose the new one, and I keep everything here, all my skills.
You can move your session from one to the other. So for example, a lot of the feedback we're getting from users is, this is great because I'm, when I finish my daily quota of Claude, I just take the same exact chat and just switch the agent at the bottom, and now I can continue in Codex or vice versa. And the other thing you can do is you can use like an orchestrator agent that uses multiple of these together. So we actually include one called Poly, but you can also easily make your own or just tell them like go launch a sub agent that's using Codex or whatever. So for example, whenever I write code with this, I tell it, use one agent to write the code, then use a different one to review it. Or if I have a bug, I just say, hey, like, let's kick off 2 or 3 of these and look for the bug. Because, one of them is basically you just need to try a lot of ideas until you figure out what caused the bug. So it's better to have like models with different biases, and I'll find the bug faster that way.
And can it help also? Because I think like a common theme is based on what you want to do. Maybe you need a smaller model or like a bigger one. So could you also like split that into smarter?
Yeah, definitely. Routine? It's very easy to just put in the prompt for like the orchestrator agent. You can tell it when to use different ones. Like and they are better at different things. Like for example, Claude is widely considered to be better at front end. GPT is like widely considered to be better at debugging. So you can write your own rules there. We're also now shipping what we call intelligent routing, where we basically have, we train some heuristics where there's an API you can call based on your prompt to like suggest which model and which agent to use. And we think that's going to get better over time too. This pattern of orchestrating multiple agents is really going to pick up. Most people with coding agents, they start with one long chat session with one agent, and then they keep asking it things. They're like, build this, now build that, now debug this. But that's actually very wasteful and not very effective way to use the agent, because you just get a huge context. When the context window gets bigger, the model gets stupider because it has to pay attention to everything else. And you're paying more, like you're paying for this like million length context window all the time. And then when it compacts it, you forget things. Whereas if you kick off sub agents and you give them tasks, they each have like a fresh start. They just do that. And then you can have like this planner or orchestrator maybe above them. This move towards like multi-agent, which you see in like Claude Code and Codex too, actually makes it much easier to do routing on a per task basis and to like actually mix and match and get the best of all the models out there.
That's very interesting because, as you mentioned, some developers used to stick with the same LLM. And actually, this is bad when you're reviewing the app with the same LLM that's built this app. And how does Omnigent architecture work behind the scene? So I guess you have a server. That's where we can store the history and everything, the artifacts and the gateway. But is there anything else? And I heard something about Neons had something like a component that was brought on to Omnigent.
There's a server which you can use for all the collaboration features, or if you want like central management, you can set policies there on all your agents. We didn't talk about those yet, but that's the other feature that like a lot of people are excited about. And then there's something we call the runner that wraps existing agents. So for example, if you just type Omni Claude or Omni Codex, it launches those. You see exactly that thing in the terminal, but it also wraps them, like listens to all the events and injects hooks and tools in there that let you use the Omnigent features, such as collaboration through the server. So these are the two big pieces. Both pieces are open source and it's designed to work with any database really. So like it definitely works with Neon. It just uses SQL Alchemy. And also it supports launching sandboxes. So we announced Databricks Sandbox, which is a very like a VM in the cloud that spins up quickly. So you can code in an isolated environment. We also support like Daytona and Modal and like Kubernetes and other ways of launching these. So we try to make it easy to integrate with like any infrastructure you have.
So how does it work with the sandbox? If I type, so I'm on my laptop, I go to the server and I type something in Omnigent, and then it's sending let's say it's sending the query to, I don't know, Cloud Code.
So the sandbox is a way to launch the whole session in a cloud VM, so you can close your laptop and like do other stuff, and so you can have maybe better security and isolation around it. Actually, one of the cool things you can do with a sandbox is you can launch it, and since you don't have your personal credentials and files and stuff in there, you can actually just share it with another developer when they're debugging or whatever. Like you can actually do, collaborative coding or review that way. But even for yourself, instead of like trying to keep your laptop running, you get this like reproducible environment. So most of our engineers, I think, code in Sandboxes. Now, the only thing some people like to do better on the laptop is front end because the developer loop is very fast. But I think even there, like about half the people use Sandboxes.
So it means you also load all the skills and everything into the sandbox.
Yeah, and you have a file system.
I think because you need to have some persistence or the libraries you're going to be using or the skills to avoid having each time this huge lag to deploy them or install them.
Yeah, and most of these platforms make it easy to clone a sandbox also, or like share your home directory, like keep it persistent even when you shut down the VM. So it can be pretty fast.
We've seen that now more and more companies are struggling when it comes to giving the right permissions to the LLMs. Like, how far should I give the LLMs? Can I give them possibility to scan my files or some specific files or send them emails? And I saw that we released a blog about contextual policies. So what does Omnigent contextual security policies do beyond coding agents auto-approve that we have?
So we spent quite a bit of time talking to security teams, cost management teams, and so on. And we realized like most agent policies are not very expressive. They're just about like if you just get Cloud Code or Codex, they're just does the tool call it's making match this pattern and like allow or disallow. And then the auto mode is instead of like listing all the patterns, have an LLM decide if that tool call looks safe. But actually, if you think about it, like it's very restrictive. Like for example, should the agent be allowed to send emails? Like probably you say it should because sometimes I'm asking it to send an email. But at the same time, if my agent, let's say just downloaded some dangerous package from NPM that was published like an hour ago, and then it like read 10,000 company docs, and now it's trying to send an email. That's probably kind of suspicious. It might have been compromised. So whether an action is safe depends a little bit on the context of what happened before. And if you just outright allow it or outright ban it, you're limiting the sort of expressivity. So the idea of contextual policies is like, let's give your policies more information so you can make better decisions. So let's let them track everything that's been happening in a session. And this enables some really, really effective sort of policy designs that are both more usable and more secure than like anything you could have configured with a static list. So for security, for example, like a lot of security teams, their ideal is to do some kind of risk scoring. As you take actions, your score goes up. If you do too many dangerous things, you now require human supervision. That's actually what they do with humans too. Like if you go to a cafe in a country you've never been and use your work laptop, it'll ask you for more checks for security. So that's one thing. Another super powerful one is like when I tell my agent at the beginning the task, why don't you narrow down what it can do based on that initial prompt? Like I told it review this code, so it should not be sending emails. If it does, maybe it's been prompt injected. This is what I think people will want to make agents like both more secure and more usable. And then the other cool thing about being able to track state like this is you can also start having policies about like spend of the agent or of the sub agent. So for example, I've had agents spend like $1,000 by mistake because they decided to like read a giant log file or something. It's actually very hard to make them spend that much if they're doing reasonable things, but sometimes they do sort of stupid things. So I can just tell the agent like, hey, put a policy on yourself and just ask me for permission after like every $10 spent. And then it'll run. When it gets to 10, it'll ask me, do you want to continue? When it gets to 20, it'll ask me. And that way I can like way more easily control this. And I just get a notification that it's asking me to continue. So yeah, I think the idea of adding state or context makes policies a lot more useful.
Yeah, and I think having also, like, I don't know if it's something we are considering, but having all the history, like, you can unlock so many interesting use cases. Like, you can see where it's struggling, you can see what's so what's so expensive, and then based on that, you can improve the system just to make it work better.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I mean that's another pattern we're seeing is if you've got agents running, whether it's like coding agents or your own app, you really want to collect and look at all the traces, and you find so many opportunities for improvement. Like we found, people, some of the skills and some of the tool descriptions and stuff for our engineers were just like super long, and you waste a lot of tokens just like reading that, and you don't need it most of the time. So nothing really beats like looking at the data to improve these.
I think I can see great integration with the MLflow 3.0 that was like literally revamped for the LLM area to be able to understand tracing. So this can be like this perfect integration, knowing that both MLflow and Omnigent are open source. So we're like really very easy to be used quickly. And I think this is really leads to the question of why did Databricks open source Omnigent under Apache Spark 2.0 instead of just keeping the orchestration layer proprietary?
So yeah, it's because we really believe that there's gonna be this new software layer above agents and above harnesses where they're all basically like text in and text out, and you want to manage them in a common way. So we thought that's going to happen. There's a lot of value in this layer. Like, for example, all the security stuff I talked about, you can write it once and it applies to like any coding agent that Omnigent understands or any custom agent or whatever. It really benefits to have like a common layer where any new agent software can like easily plug in, any new control idea or like UI or whatever can plug in as well. And that makes sense when it's open source. So that's what we wanted to do. And actually we're finding a lot of companies now that say, yeah, I built something like this internally, or I was designing something, and actually I'd love to join forces and collaborate on this because, everyone benefits when we add features to this thing and when all of them can work well together. It's not that different from like MLflow, which was for ML ops. Like the problem in there is there's so many ML libraries, so many like pieces of infrastructure where you can deploy models and stuff. If you try to build your own ML ops platform like from scratch, you'll be out of date in like 6 months with all the new stuff that's come out. But if you build on this open source one, people just integrate in one place and like everything can work together, and you share that effort with the community of keeping up to date.
All right. Well, anything we are missing on Omnigent?
No, I mean, I just recommend people try it out, try the collaboration and the live editing. Like now all the ways I use agents, even for like non-coding, are through this because it's so easy to share stuff, to write documents together, and just to like get many opinions from different models on the same task.
Yeah, just go give it a try. Like one of the features I love, by the way, is how like I have Claude running on my laptop, and then I just go on the server, and then I just can.
If you can use the mobile app too, it's a big deal. Yeah, save a lot of effort. Yeah.
Yeah, those big struggle always keeping the laptop open, like walking while having the laptop because you don't want your agent to stop.
All right, well, Matei, thank you so much, and yeah, just go give it a try. Omnigent.ai.